All right. G'day. Welcome back to Rolling Forward with SEQH.
Morning, Nathan.
You got Brett and Nathan here. So pretty exciting. Our third episode in on this special little adventure we're going on.
The podcast series, yep.
Yep. And this is a special one here as well because it's not a fresh topic for us. It's something we've been venturing for a number of years and something in more recent years that has been coming to light more and more. So today we're going to talk about electric trucks.
Electric trucks.
And what electric trucks look like inside our business. So the teaser where we're going to get to is we purchased a couple of these things.
We do.
They're coming very soon. So a little bit further on, we'll talk about where we're going to put those in the fleet and really who do we want to talk to about these in the future.
That's right.
It's pretty damn exciting.
Yeah. There's certain tasks they appeal to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to kick things off there, Brett, let's talk about the journey to present. You know, where things have gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll talk more broadly about industry trends and then specifically about us. But over the years, there's been a number of iterations of emissions controls to try and improve diesel emissions and reduce the contamination of our atmosphere. And the whole journey towards electric is about that. You know, it's about trying to reduce what we emit in CO2 and the like into the atmosphere. So,
yep.
You know, we've gone through Euro 4, Euro 5, we're now at Euro 6, mandated Euro 6, which is all cleaner exhaust. But ultimately that doesn't get us on the no warming path.
Yep.
So we've got to get in other things like hydrogen and electric. Yep. So here today we talk about electric. So that's the journey, and the diesel journey is still ongoing. You know, we can't today rule a line in the sand and say we're going to buy electric trucks because they don't quite suit every task that we do. But ultimately, they are an important part of the process about reducing our emissions.
Yep. And no doubt Australia is a really challenging market to actually nail this on doing this first go.
The distances and also the infrastructure. You need a lot of infrastructure for electric trucks. So for us personally, we've embarked on a journey of improving and increasing the average size of our truck.
Yep.
Which meant that we cart more freight per CO2 tonne emitted.
Yep.
That's sort of job one about being efficient, and there's some other stuff we've done there too, Nathan. You might want to talk about that.
Yep.
We've also been supporters of solar. We've had solar on our business now for almost 8 years, or a bit over 8 years.
Yep.
So that's been an important component, and it's tens of thousands of tonnes of CO2 reduced for that process, and we'll continue to do that. Also, as a business, we've supported solar projects, and we've done, I'm guessing, maybe 20, Nate?
Yeah, 24, something like that.
Yeah, significant 1,000-plus container solar projects. So we've been a big supporter of that. And the new journey is on batteries to support those solar projects, and they're in full swing right now. So, and we're headlong into that as well. So
yeah, we're proudly carting a lot of those around town too.
Yes,
to their final mile destination.
Yes.
And those vehicles you talked about beforehand, you know, for the purpose of this is Brett's talking about the A-doubles. You know, launched back in 2010, took you about 3 years working with government entities and so forth.
Hallmark,
and Hallmark and Mack, the manufacturers, to actually get the right trucking combination, the right prime mover, paired with the right trailing set.
And that's about efficiency and reduction in CO2.
Yep.
Two things. So the whole emissions reduction thing works best when it's commercially aligned, when it's in everyone's commercial interest to reduce CO2 emissions.
Yeah, and that was a massive milestone because, you know, like when we just segue there for a second, historically, containers would come down one at a time.
That's right.
From Western Queensland down to the Port of Brisbane.
That's right.
And that changed then two at a time, which is a massive change.
Yeah, that's right.
And we're not quite at the point of having an electric truck at the front of that to then run two. But, you know, as we delve into this deeper, there's other ways we can actually, you know, cut that up, which is pretty exciting.
Yes, no, exactly.
So as we delve into the electric side, let's bring our minds back to 2022.
Yes.
So we're fortunate enough to both go on some Volvo tours.
Yes.
Over to the likes of Sweden.
Yes.
And that was just amazing.
Yes.
And that was our opening to this pathway ahead of what this manufacturer is actually doing.
Yes.
And seeing the actions beyond their words as well was quite remarkable.
Yes. They're betting their company on CO2 reduction.
Yeah.
And electric and hydrogen trucks. There's no question. So,
Yep.
and that's very much the difference, if I could say, between the European approach, the American and Asian approach is the Europeans are leading the charge.
Yep.
So that's what you'll see when you see electric trucks on the road here in Australia. You'll see mostly European brands.
Yep. Yep. And that was, so let's talk a bit about that experience. And, we went to the drive centre and got to experience these trucks.
That's right.
And what I vividly remember is jumping in and just how quiet it was. You'd turn the ignition on and the same noise would apply to when it was off.
Yep, that's right.
And then you'd start accelerating and you'd think that, well, maybe this is electric trucks, so it's not going to have the go compared to a diesel. And I still remember, feeling quite that
the buzz
and the power. And we were just running on flats as well. We had some hills in there too.
Yeah, we had a few tons on. So it does. It's a different experience to drive.
Yep.
But they certainly have plenty of torque.
Yeah.
And as to torque from the get-go, there's no torque curve like on a diesel. It's just from the get-go. So it's a different truck, and it's very easy to drive too. Very easy for us to expand our driver base in terms of who might want to drive one of these things. You don't have to deal with refueling diesel.
Yes.
You don't have to deal with oils, and you still have to deal with some oils, but the extent of oils you got on a diesel truck. So that might appeal to a bigger driver pool.
Yep.
And the whole introduction of a no CO2 vehicle, I think will expand our base.
Yep. And it just, to me, it felt like a big four-wheel drive.
Yes.
Like you got to be careful. You can't have the mindset of I'm just driving a big car and forget the weight that you're actually carting behind you.
Yeah.
But it was just a very comfortable experience. And like you said, to appeal to a wider group of drivers,
potential drivers,
experience more comfortable, is important because the demographic of driver is changing as well.
Yes.
And one of the things we've spoken about in the past is just the sheer fact that there's a lot of people that come in as a professional driver on potentially their second or third or fourth
job,
career change, compared to years ago where, boy would grow up watching his,
dad, uncle,
male, predominantly male figure,
yes,
operate heavy machinery, heavy vehicles.
That's right.
And then follow pathway as well.
Yeah, and learn how to change tyres, change brakes.
Yep. And like you look at you and I, there's a clear difference right there where you grew up that avenue. You saw your dad in that light.
That's right.
And you physically got to experience that before having a license,
That's
which is exciting.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Comparatively, I experienced my first truck when I was 23, 24.
Yes, that's right.
Dramatically different.
You still went through the process and learned that, Nath. So
Yeah, but it just as a later on.
Yes.
So that, again, this is where this can be quite appealing if people are jumping in their 30s or 40s,
yes,
or even later. One of the conversations we've had in the past too is trying to attract to the other demographic.
Yes, the other 50% of the population who doesn't drive too many trucks. Yeah.
Yep, is getting more females into the industry.
Yes,
and this is another avenue.
Perfect opportunity. Yeah.
The last thing I want to say on the actual trucking experience that I hadn't thought too much about beforehand was just how quiet it is. And when we were in Sweden talking to the Swedes and whatnot, they were very much putting across from a noise perspective the difference.
Yes.
And how much better it is for you as well.
Yeah.
And it's something I hadn't really twigged onto.
Yes. Well, there's two things about noise. One is the external noise the truck makes, which is a warning to people on road or on footpaths that there's a vehicle coming.
Yeah.
So that's something we've got to deal with. These trucks are quiet.
Yep.
So, but the second thing is the driver experience, as you're saying, Nath, internal to the truck. Noise is fatiguing.
Yep.
Back in the old days, driving an old R model Mac was quite fatiguing. You take that noise away, and suddenly 10 hours is a long day in an R model. 12 hours isn't a long day in a Volvo with diesel Volvo with no noise. And I suspect 12 hours is a really easy day in an electric truck.
Yep.
Because the noise doesn't fatigue you.
Yep. So all in all, like we're a week or two away from seeing our first couple of trucks come along.
Yes.
And
cart some containers.
And
love it.
We're excited. It's gonna be pretty damn cool. Anything else you want to reference on that?
No. That's. I mean, it's the noise. Lack of noise also creates some issues.
Yep.
But it also creates plenty of opportunities too, and it does reduce the fatigue people. And just how hard it is to do. to do the job.
Yep. Yep.
So
Perfect. So let's talk about what previously, before we move on to why we're actually going down this pathway in a deeper form and where we're going to position said trucks and whatnot.
Yep.
What previously have we been doing to target this? Target this topic?
Well, it's more about understanding what it's about. Doing trips with Volvo, understanding what the products are, what they're strong at, what they're not strong at, distances, weights, another issue. The regulatory environment's been a little bit challenging still. We're still working our way through that. It's not easy.
And I guess that's also why, we had that tour in 2022 and Volvo had started manufacturing these trucks.
Yes.
And they were very much in the market in Europe. But in Australia, regulatory wise,
it's been difficult.
Been very challenging.
Yeah, we haven't got a regulatory buy-in yet. The trucks themselves are heavier, which is one issue. A typical diesel truck we'd be operating with somewhere between 8.5 and 9.5 tons tear. These trucks typically run around 12.5 tons. So you're giving up payload off the bat. So
which is challenging because in a market that we're in right now where you're going to be as efficient as possible and maximise your weights,
you've got this issue of you've got a heavy truck. So some of the ways around that are regulatory support, allowing additional mass, but that's an argument that only lasts so long in terms of, well, why not the diesels? Why not the diesel trucks? So that's an issue. There are some different tech, and there's some other tech they can use, bigger tyres, airbag suspensions and stuff to try and reduce that impact, but still it doesn't get away from the fact they are heavier.
Yep.
Yeah, they've got batteries on board and they're heavier.
Yep.
So that's an issue.
Yep. Most certainly.
And probably also targets where these trucks would be better than diesels. You need to be where gross mass isn't the main game, if you know what I mean. There's plenty of containers we cart that are, sub 25 tons. So there's probably, in our business, probably 3/4 are less than 25 tons. So that means max carrying capacity isn't that important in those applications.
Yep. And just touching on a couple of points we made beforehand, but just more so emphasising some of the measures we've been doing previously to support, environmentally focused activities.
Yes.
Is, as you said, the solar on a roof.
Yep.
And these are the measures that we're going to continue doing on other infrastructure builds and projects and things like that as well.
Yes.
Is chasing down efficient combinations. And what I mean by that is when we partner with clients, we really want to understand their supply chains and their setup, their facilities, and challenge the current norm, challenge the thinking.
Yeah, exactly.
And in some cases, we put a different style of vehicle on. We might be applying for permits with the government to get A doubles to that site, et cetera, or looking at B doubles.
Yep.
In other scenarios, we're actually putting container handlers on site because we see that as a way for the customer to scale, but also to be more efficient with the combinations we're actually sending to that location.
That's right.
Less idle time.
Reduce our CO2.
Yep, all of that. So those things, they're not going to change.
No.
We're still going to keep doing that. That's ingrained in our culture,
that's
our DNA. The next part is a new introduction, and that's the electric truck, which we haven't ventured down. And we're, again, we did this venture back in 2022.
Yep.
And we're pretty excited to see this come through.
Yeah. Well, innovation is one of our values, Nath, and we're proud to be first off the rank here on these things. It's not, it's not, we're not the first, the absolute first on the road, but we're one of the first in the container business. And that goes to say it's one of our values. It's what we like to do, and there are parts of our business where this can slot in pretty efficiently straight away. So, I see quite a number of electric trucks being part of our business. And also, we might crack the egg here and say, well, some of these will be in the A-double applications, so, and maybe even something bigger than that. But we'll watch this space. It'll be another podcast.
More to come on that. Yeah,
it'll be another podcast.
And that's really where our thinking was aligned back in 22 as well, where a lot of the talk was, well, we're just looking at singles. You got a payload of 40 odd ton.
Yep.
And so you're just running singles. But fortunately, within our business, many years ago, we got the standard A double, but we've got 3 versions of that, 3 iterations.
Yes.
And one of those is that single axle A double.
Yeah.
Where it's carton empty boxes.
We got a cart empty. For every full, we got a carton empty. So that's the way the business works. So that's a whole sector we can employ these things without gross mass being an issue, distance being an issue. So there's
short legs.
That's right. There's parts of the business these things can slot straight in. So that's why I'm quite positive on how many of these vehicles we can house inside our business.
Yeah.
The issue then is charging infrastructure and green power to make sure these things are truly CO2 reducers.
Yep. Yep. So specifically, we're going to use it in our empty division.
Yes.
And kick that off there. I want you to talk about the second purpose we have as well.
Yeah, which is the short delivery, short single trail delivery. So that's where big distances aren't critical.
Yep.
And we've got to get them back and charge them up between shifts.
Yep.
And we're sort of hopeful that we won't need to dedicate a shift to charging during the week.
Yep.
So our plan will be very much around short-term charging between shifts to double shift these vehicles, because ultimately that's what our plan is, just to double shift them in the same way we double shift our diesels.
Yep.
So
it's important for us to chase efficiencies. We don't want to bring on, as I said, this style of combination.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden reduce efficiencies within our fleet.
That's right.
So we're looking at all those different aspects.
Yes. So the ideal thing is to say where CO2 reductions and commerciality align.
Yep.
And that's what we've got to do. We'll look for both those things.
Yep. And we've got plenty of customers that are in our close proximity.
Yes.
And there's also plenty of customers, that are no doubt are going to be interested in this topic as well.
Yes.
To actually see electric vehicles on their facility and them knowing that they're actually being a part of, a good process.
And CO2 reductions. That's right.
Yep.
No, exactly.
Yep. So I guess if we wrap things up with, who do we want to connect with? Because this is a journey that we're going on with Volvo, but it's a journey that extends through to importers and exporters,
to customers. That's
to customers. So let's talk a little bit about who do we actually want to connect with here on.
Well, people who are interested in reducing their CO2 footprint. Obviously, that's criteria one. These vehicles may not be quite as cheap as the diesel option, but they won't be far away.
Yep.
The other issue is, as I said, European companies, typically their managements are more focused on CO2 reductions and electric trucks, perhaps more so than American and Asian customers. But that's not to say there aren't standouts in the American and the Asian area as well that have interests in CO2 reduction. So we're interested in people who want to reduce their CO2 footprint and want to be part of this journey with us. So we'd love to talk to them, Nathan.
Yep. Wonderful. Well, stay tuned to see some photos, videos, and we're just going to go nuts with putting these out there because we're really excited. Again, we didn't decide about this a month ago. This has been spoken about for a number of years.
A long time,
and as you mentioned, there's been regulatory challenges in what Volvo has been working on, with government and so forth.
Yes, that's right. There is.
And
it's not straight, and we got to work through it. So that's cool.
So we're excited to hit the road and go.
Beautiful.
So until next time, have a great day.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.